You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Challenge us at Wexford Insurances 0818 31 30 30.
I'm joined now in studio by Adrian Haythornthwaite from Sherry Fitzgerald Haythornthwaite, based in Wexford Town. The reason that I invited you in this morning is to provide us with an overview of the current property market across County Wexford. But before we discuss that, Adrian, start by telling me a little bit about your own background, please.
Okay, well, I qualified in 1979. I came to Wexford in 1983. I set up in partnership with Barry Keogh. That partnership lasted until 1991. We agreed to go our separate ways. And I've been working away since then. About 15 years ago, I joined the Sherry Fitzgerald franchise, and we've been building that ever since. So it's been a very interesting 30 years.
Tell me the reason, firstly, that you went with a franchise when you did set up yourself in business. What was the decision behind going with Sherry Fitzgerald?
There was several layers to it. I saw that I could do much more with the franchise than I could do on my own. With the franchise, it gave me access to resources and access to a depth of material that I just couldn't get any other way. Now, that has proven to be absolutely correct in as much as the relationship that I share with Sherry Fitzgerald, whereby I'm a franchisee of them, and I use their name and I use their brand. So what this means is we have the ability to reach into the property market at a phenomenal depth and at tremendous detail, because we've got people on the ground all across the country. Now, that was the vision that I certainly had in 15 years ago. Mark Fitzgerald had it, Philip Sherry had it, and it's worked. It's been good. It's given us great reach and great depth.
You've been in the property market long enough to experience 2 recessions. How does this recession differ from that back in the 80s?
3 actually, but this one is deeper. It's lasted longer, and I think it's the first time that it kind of affected everybody. I think that's the big difference. You know, property had become, you know, the subject that everybody was able to talk about, and we had sort of gone into the stage where, and as a country, where we believed that it would just go on and on and on, and all you had to do was add your name to the title deeds, and the property values would go up. It had become completely irrational. Emperor's new clothes. Okay, very easy to see that looking backwards. I suppose the difference between this time that we're in and any other times that I've experienced is that it's deeper and it touches the lives of every single person.
You mentioned there that people based their decisions on, I suppose, irrational information at the time. Who do you think was responsible for feeding that?
I believe there's a number of people who, if they'd done their job correctly, it would have made a big difference. I find it unconscionable that the central bank, who had established arrangements in place, could actually stand up and say, look, you know, we believed in a sort of a hands-off approach. You know, at the end of the day, if we didn't have the money supply, we wouldn't have had the inflation. If we didn't have the inflation, we wouldn't have had the problems. So I would have seen the lack of regulation as being utterly fundamental to this. We had a system in place and we did not use it. It's real, just Irish. You know, you got the rules, but we don't turn them on. Simple as that. That if I was going to put the finger on any single issue that was there, that's the one that frustrates me when I think about it.
Are you confident that has been resolved at this stage?
I don't believe that they'll do that twice. Not after what we're going through right now. They're in the eye of the storm. Yes, I do believe it'll be there. But I'm not. You know, I don't work in their space, but I think that we've probably swung back too far now. That people in the financial sector are so scared of so scared of what's coming over their shoulder that they're frozen. They're like rabbits caught in the headlights. They're not making decisions. You know, it's far easier to defer an issue than it is to actually make a constructive decision on it. And meanwhile, you know, Rome's burning. Okay, so I'm seeing situations where properties are tumbling in value. People are not grasping the nettle and getting on with it. And when you look at an empty shop or an empty factory or an empty warehouse or any of these things that are empty, you've got to realize these places are designed to work. And the only thing that's stopping them working is addressing the issues of where the value is today swallowing the loss, biting the lemon, sucking in hard, taking it and moving on. But that isn't happening in large measure.
That leads us on to the topic of the banks themselves. What's your opinion in terms of the lending attitude of the banks out there today? Who's lending, who's not, and if so, why not?
Okay, well, there seems to be two pictures here. I mean, the banks would tell you that they are lending. The banks would tell you that they have loads of money and it's available for businesses. Well, I'm not seeing that on the ground, and I know this enrages banker friends that I've got, because they say, look, this just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you say we're not lending. But I mean, the reality of it is everybody's overdrafts have been halved. The reality of the situation is that people can't get the working capital. You know, there's something like 10% of the best shops on Wexford's Main Street are available right now. Something like 70% of the secondary shops are available right now. Now, the only reason for a shop to be empty is a guy cannot get the working capital to open the door. The landlords aren't being dogs about it. They'll take the rent that's being offered. That isn't a problem. We're doing turnover-related rents. We've got one shop at the moment where the offer that's on the table is 5% of the guy's turnover. You know, that type of thing is happening. The individuals are adapting. The banks aren't. So in short, what we're experiencing is that the lack of working capital facility, or the absence of it, is bringing the commercial market to, frankly, a full stop.
That's your opinion on the commercial side of the market. Let's talk about the residential side. There's lots of different, I suppose, people involved in the residential side in terms of property purchasing. Let's talk about the first-time buyer. What does the market look like for them from a banking perspective?
Okay, well, again, while the banks are saying, look, we have the money and we're out there and we're putting the loans on the table, that's fine, but the actual conditions that they're applying to it are very difficult. I'll give you one example now. I sold a house a couple of months ago to a young couple, nice, very nice pair, right? And nice pair of people who own it. Now, unfortunately, the house that they own, they had to sell it for slightly less than they owe. Now, it's taken many, many months to get the bank, who are behind the seller, to write a letter confirming the new terms of the new loan arrangement that they will engage with the seller to address the back end of his loan. Okay? Meanwhile, the loan that the buyer has is timing out. So he's hopping up and down and saying, look, now here's a situation that they promised, 9 or 10 weeks ago to offer him that he'd be good for a loan, and now they're sitting back and they're saying, no, that mightn't apply now. Now that becomes profoundly frustrating for everybody involved. Because you've got a frustrated purchaser, a frustrated vendor, a frustrated a frustrated solicitors. Everybody else in the process is cycling in the mud, not getting anything done. And if we would just get into a situation where these people would make decisions that they stood over and said, right, here it is, we'd be in a very different space. Look, 75% of the people that we sold to in 2011 did not borrow money. That's a fact, right? And that's at this level. That's down in Wexford. Nationally, the picture is something like 35% did not borrow money. Now, I mean, the bank spin just doesn't sit with me when I'm addressing the realities in there. So there's your answer. Yeah.
And maybe some of the issue in relation to the banks is that they're coming out and they're saying they're approving so many loans, but it's the conditions that are attached to the loans are the issue here.
Oh, that's exactly the thing. It's It's not workable. The way they're handing out the Christmas cake. It doesn't work. It's not there.
What percentage of a deposit are the banks looking for today, let's say, from a first-time buyer? Between
10 and 15%. That's not the problem. The problem is the other conditions that they put on it in terms of, how blue chip he's got to be and the multiplier of his salary or her salary or whatever. They make it difficult in other ways. It's not just the deposit.
Where do you see that going?
Well, I can't believe that the banks have this organisation that has branch offices and staff all across the country that can continue to exist without doing loans. Somebody somewhere is going to have to sit up and say, hang on a second, we've got to lighten up the reins here a little bit and start taking risks. That's what we get paid for.
Just to focus on that 75% again, let's look at the residential side of your own business. What was the age profile of those that purchased properties last year?
I don't know the actual breakdown, but there's a significant number of people who are over 55 who are buying properties today. Now, the cynics would say that's because they're the ones with all the money. But that's not actually true. What's happening is the over 55 buyer is much clearer in their head about what they want to do, the way they want to live, and the space that they're in. It was interesting across Sherry Fitzgerald last year. Now, a lot of people, the problem with this whole recession is that people almost want to continue, because it's become a kind of a miserable space that they enjoy moaning on about, right? It's like a form of mourning that just keeps going on and on and on. If I was to tell you that across Sherry Fitzgerald last year, across all the subs, all the offices, 19% of people sold their houses because they were buying a bigger one. 13% of people sold their houses because they were relocating to a different place. That's pretty incredible. That means almost a quarter of Ireland's selling population is on the move and wants something better or something bigger. That's what I'm saying. That's where I believe that the seeds of this nuclear winter being over are here.
That certainly makes a lot of sense. If we were to go back again to this residential market and the 75%, you said lots of your buyers are over 55. Are you finding that they're working in the public sector?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are in the public sector and are there because there is a school of thought to say that they actually have more disposable income than the private sector. But that's probably slightly skewed as well by the fact that they've had a lot of them have taken their early payments and stuff like that. But we're not. That's theoretical. I don't believe that they've percolated through to those statistics yet. Those statistics really reflect the fact that somebody's got their money on deposit, and it's not that they're scared of it being on deposit and losing it. It's that they see property as being a very safe thing at this point to put their money into.
Have we seen the start of people returning from Australia yet with all the money that they made over there investing in property in Ireland?
No, very funny. I haven't seen Australians coming back. 25% of our sales last year, again in 2011, were to people returning from the UK. So 1 in 4 sales were coming back from the UK. We have very strong connections with the UK. For my part, I've been doing property sale exhibitions over there for 30 years. So, I have a couple of times a year, I have a very, very strong sales link to that, right? But there's very strong emotive and social connections with the UK by Irish people. Typically, the Irish guy coming back from the UK has a very strong parochial connection here. He's a Wexford man.
That's very interesting, Adrian, in relation to those returning from the UK. Tell me more about these people. What age group are they? Are they married with families? Are they coming back to retire in Wexford? What's their plan?
Okay, there's a number of different groups, right? The family, they tend to be older. They tend to have raised their families. They tend to be coming back because they see Wexford and environs as being a stable, good place to live with very close transport links to their existing family. So, the fact that they can get on the boat at 9 o'clock in the morning and be in central London by 6:30 or whatever time it is on the boat train, sweet out. That suits them. So that's one group, and that would be the predominant group. They're coming back for lifestyle reasons, right? There should be a group that come back for educational reasons and then stay for lifestyle. They haven't made that move yet, would be the way we'd see it. So I don't tend to be dealing with ones who are coming back with families. They tend to be people who've made their living over there. They've got the money now, and the plan that they always had to return, they're now going to put it into place. So typically they're between 55 and 65, and when they walk in the door to buy a house, they are not joking. They want a house, but they want it before they go home. That's the space.
In relation to the value of property that's selling out there, is there any particular band in terms of value that's selling more than others?
Our industry normally dreads elections and referenda and the likes of that, because when they happen, it brings what little activity there is out there to a full stop. This year that didn't happen for some reason. We kept working away. Now, what we've noticed is that over 250 grand in value is extremely difficult to sell to, because it's working to a different dynamic. Whereas the sales that we're actually doing, if you were to sort of drill down and look at it, the sales that we're doing are the ones that are quite cheap. They're 60 grand here, 70 grand there, 120 grand here and there. That's where the guy can spend the money that he's got, and he doesn't have to go off and borrow the stuff.
When did you see investors returning to the market?
I can see investors returning to the market the instant the banks start taking a looser view on risk. But you see, then you've also got the human aspect of it, that you've got the different personnel in the banks are spending most of their time dealing with appalling trauma, and people whose assets are worth a fraction of what they've borrowed, and dealing with very human aspects of how you sort that mess out. Now, if you've got a guy or personnel who are buried in that up to their armpits, it's very difficult to explain to them the creative aspects of doing a loan to Joe Bloggs to buy an investment property. At the moment, Joe Bloggs is buying the investment property because he sees it as a safe place to put his money.
Is there many investors that are cash rich contacting yourself looking for bargains?
Yes, they're there. They're out there. We've got a little property let to a charitable organisation. Now, the beautiful thing about charitable organisations is that they go on and on and on and on, right? Okay. They also, you can argue cynically that they have less overheads because they don't pay rates because they're registered against that. Okay, fair enough. Now, it's producing a rent of something like 30 grand a year, and that will sell for about 250 grand to a guy who's got the money. That purchaser is already on our books. He or she has the money and they're ready to go. Now, if they would like to borrow it, because if they can go off and borrow it, they can buy twice as many of them. Do you know? But if they can't borrow it, they'll still buy one.
I attended a number of those high-profile auctions that were held in Dublin over the last 12 months, and my take on it is that property was selling if it was giving an 8 to 10 year return on it. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that's very accurate. I believe that those Alsop auctions were very much a turning point in Ireland's property history. I think they were great. Now, I mean, I know people get very snotty about them, but I mean, they were great. It was the first time people could see that there was life. There was a whole lot of underbidders in the room who walked out ticked off because they didn't bid enough to buy something. You know, absolutely marvellous. And it was a tangible, proof that you can do it, right? Right, we're in the New Ireland. We are where the values are. That's it. Let's get on with it. Now, the man on the street has accepted this, but the financial services sector haven't actually. They're dodging the issue. They're as I say, like lamp rabbits a little bit.
Are you finding that there's much repossessed property coming to the market?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. There is, and interestingly enough, I find that everybody else involved in the procedure, by that I mean the banks and the financial people involved in the thing, are much touchier about it than the individual involved. The individual involved has nearly always accepted the point, and he or she usually just wants to get on with their life and get on with it, start again, go again.
Wexford always would have been synonymous with holiday homes. Have we seen that disappear? Has it reduced, or is the demand still good and high for holiday-type products in County Wexford?
The demand is still good. The prices have been savaged in the same way as all other prices have. So we're very lucky that we have this special place in particularly the Dubliners' mind, but Ireland's mind, as being a playground and a place to come to that where the world stops spinning for as long as you're here. Now, that's something that a lot of people treasure, and yes, there is a strong market in it, yeah.
And those that are looking for holiday homes in County Wexford, tell me a bit about their demographic. Okay,
typically a lot of them see the house as being something that is a safe place to put money into. That's the first thing to recognise, right? Their demographic is, these ones are slightly different. They will usually have children. The reason that they want to spend more time with the kids. Life in Dublin can be hard, particularly if you're both working and you're dealing with the M50 parking lot and the traffic clampers and everything else like that. And to get down here and just have a place where just things just stop being a hassle is terrific. So their demographic is, I suppose, look, their buying motive is intensely emotional and underwritten by a sense of, well, look, this is a reasonable thing to put money into.
Well, Adrian, it's certainly been a very insightful interview. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you continued success.
You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Think Wexford Insurances for your business insurance.